Okay, so I think we're ready to start. It's 10 o'clock in Vietnam, so good morning and good afternoon to others. Welcome. Welcome to what is the sixth and the second last session of our Australia-Vietnam webinar series on digital transformation of TVET. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present and all First Nations peoples who may be here with us today. So my name is Lyndall Manson and I am the Policy and Project Manager at TAFE Directors Australia. So today's webinar session will focus on student support and engagement in an online environment, including what support measures and programs help students build digital capability. I would like to thank the participants from the Directorate of Vocational Education and Training, as well as all of the leaders and trainers from colleges across Vietnam for being here with us again today. I would also like to thank Desi and the education team at the Australian Embassy in Vietnam and our interpreters who do such a great job in support of this webinar series. So it is a great pleasure to have with us today two Australian experts with extensive experience in today's webinar topic. I can see them smiling away. We have Hugh Nguyen, sorry if I've mispronounced that, you can correct me, who is a VET lecturer in foundation skills at Charles Darwin University. And we have Lisa Jeffrey, who is a product specialist in VET, also from Charles Darwin University. So at the end of their presentation today, we will have a Q&A session. So please post your questions in the chat box. And just before we move on, a quick reminder that you can access simultaneous interpretation by clicking on the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen and choosing either English or Vietnamese. Please ensure that your microphone is mute if you're not speaking. And finally, please note that this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be circulated to the participants after this webinar. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. Hugh has been working as an English language lecturer with Charles Darwin University for 10 years. Prior to that, she was an English as a foreign language lecturer and teacher in several universities and institutions in Vietnam and China. She was the distance learning teacher and coordinator for the Adult Migrant English program in the Northern Territory from 2015 to 2017. She focuses on designing, teaching, and engaging learners studying online or face-to-face so that they can gain confidence and improve their English language literacy, numeracy, and digital skills for VET courses, higher education, or for work purposes. Lisa has worked for Charles Darwin University since 2010. For the first 8 years, she was an adult vocational education and training lecturer in the building, design and drafting industry. It was during this time that Lisa developed her skills in teaching in a blended modality, combining online learning with a face-to-face workplace-based simulation of a building design and drafting office. Since that time, Lisa has been in her role as the product specialist, VET, in the Central Portfolio Education Strategy, which supports VET teaching and learning across the university. Her role includes supporting VET staff to design, develop and deliver online and blended technology-enabled learning, to build these same staff members' digital capability and help them to build their student digital skills. So I will now hand over to Hugh and Lisa. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for the lovely introduction and thank you all for being here today. My name is Hugh Nguyen and it's an honor for me to be here to share my online teaching story to you today. Yeah, I've been an English language lecturer at Charles Darwin University, or we say CDU, for 10 years now. And prior to that, I was the English language lecturer and teacher in some universities in Vietnam and institutions as well in Vietnam and in China. And some of the universities are like National Institute of Public Administration in Ho Chi Minh City, Ho Chi Minh City University of Technology, Ho Chi Minh City University of Social Sciences, which now belongs to Ho Chi Minh City University, National University. In Vietnam, USA Society. And in China, I taught English in Hunan University in Central South. Now at Charles Darwin University, I teach English to students who would like to improve the English for vocational education, for higher education, and for work purposes. So I provide foundation skills programs to individuals, companies, and organizations in the Northern Territory. These company employees and individuals wish to strengthen and improve the English language literacy, numeracy, and or digital skills for the employment or study options. And the programs are blended both online and face-to-face. And I've been working with students from all walks of life from more than 50 different countries, from different cultural and educational backgrounds. Now, I'd like to hand over to Lisa so that she can introduce herself.
Thank you, Hugh. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Lyndall, and I'm honoured to be sharing this presentation with you all. In my role here at CDU, I support VET lecturers when they are beginning to teach online. I give them support to decide what online tools they would like to use for their industry area and for their students, and help to guide them to develop their online learning practice. I help them to use the tools and to ensure that they are giving quality, compliant, student-centered learning with those tools. Many new teachers need help and training, so I coach and mentor them each year to improve their skills teaching online.
Okay. Now, so Lisa and I work together here at CDU, and we recently delivered a non-accredited short course program fully online to a group of English language students and their lecturers at Patimura University in Southwest Indonesia. I took care of the online learning content, and Lisa supported me with the technology and with guidance and troubleshooting. It was a huge success, very challenging, but a wonderful experience. We'll be sharing this experience with you today as an example of how we supported our students and engaged them in an online learning environment. We hope that you will learn some tips and tricks that you can apply in your teaching. Just one thing to remind you, we are very happy to be getting to know you all, and we are happy to make your journey to teaching the technology a little bit easier by learning from what we have experienced. So we are always learning ourselves, and because CDU has a vision to develop communities locally, nationally, and internationally through our teaching and learning and our research. So we are keen to create new partnership with you all.
Before we get, before we get started, similar to Lyndall, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which we are coming to you from, the Larrakia people, and pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today or watching the recording later. Now, I'm going to give you some instructions. We have some fun engagement tools to share with you today. This is the first of 3 different electronic online engagement tools that we have employed with our students and that we think that you will enjoy as participants in this webinar, and then practice and perhaps use it with your students in the future. So the first one we want to share with you is called Padlet. I'm going to post some instructions in the chat for you that you can follow so that you can use Padlet from your devices wherever you are. Now, if you are on a computer watching this Zoom, you'll be able to click on the link that I'm going to post in the chat so that you can go automatically to that site and see the Padlet screen. I'll share that with you in a minute. We also have some attendants who may be on their mobile devices on a smartphone. So you can also use this same link on that device. If you're watching the Zoom meeting and you want to be able to use your phone at the same time, if you use the home button to minimize Zoom, it will just make it disappear on the screen, but it won't kick you out of the meeting. And you'll be able to click on the link in the chat and it will take you to the Padlet screen. So I'm going to do that now and show you what we mean. This is Padlet. It's a digital whiteboarding tool that is available for free if you subscribe. It's a very flexible, somebody's already jumped in and said hello, well done. It's a very flexible tool that you can design to have many students participate at the same time. What Hugh and I would love is if you would like to post some questions for the Q&A session at the end of our talk, you're welcome to post them in the Padlet screen. So if you're able to click on that link in the chat and go to the web page that I'm showing on the screen now, you'll see a small pink circle at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, either on your mobile or on your computer desktop screen. And when you click on that, you'll actually see a box where you can write something. Where it says write something beautiful, you can type something in. So I'm just typing in now, hello everyone, welcome. It's a terrific tool and very flexible. When you click publish, it just shows up on the screen. As the information builds up, Hugh and I can scroll down and see what everybody's saying. So we encourage you to keep that open if you want to, and post in the Padlet any questions that you might have for the end.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's anonymous.
Yeah. If you log in, it will show up with your name and you can create an account. But for now, it's just anonymous. Just a little bit of background about us. CDU is a dual sector university, so both higher education and vocational education students. We are the largest public VET provider, vocational education and training, in the Northern Territory of Australia. We're a university for the Northern Territory and from the Northern Territory. It's our mission to support the economic, environmental, cultural, and social development of the NT. We operate on lands of many strong First Nations peoples, so our university is deeply engaged with Australia's Indigenous people. CDU has approximately 9,000 VET students each year. Those students study across 140 qualifications and in over 100 different locations. Many of those locations are remote and very remote Indigenous communities. We've been teaching VET in the Northern Territory for 47 years, and we have been delivering some components of VET online since 2002. Teaching online in higher education and in VET is inevitable. However, the support needed by online students in VET is quite different to a higher education degree student, where they're expected to be quite self-sufficient. For example, before our emergency transition to online learning because of COVID, our VET students needed to be assessed to make certain they had the digital skills and the computer equipment and the internet connectivity to be able to study online. Whereas higher education students are expected to determine this for themselves, and it is somewhat taken for granted. Many of our VET students come from low socioeconomic backgrounds and don't have access to a computer that they need to study successfully online. They might be the first in their family to go to university, and perhaps they lack the digital skills that a more self-directed student might enjoy. CDU VET lecturers are also upgrading their own digital capability to teach now more than ever before. And while some have really struggled with the new learning, they have a positive disposition, which is quite contagious. They're learning just as fast as the students are. So both the staff and the students are all at different digital skill levels and need different support so they can become the digital citizen and do teaching and learning the way they'd like to. Traditionally, Australian VET provides education and training in a face-to-face mode. But due to the pandemic, we had to transition to emergency online training. The team I am in education strategy spent months supporting the VET lecturers so they could identify what teaching they could manage online and how to support their students. Many VET lecturers here at CDU had never taught anything online and were very new to Zoom and using our learning management system, which is called LearnLine. My team and I spent every day helping them practice the tools and skills that they needed to feel confident in front of an online class. Having a dedicated team for this was very important. For some students, they did not have enough internet or computer equipment to be able to learn online, especially during COVID so fast. So we sent them the resources in the mail or via Facebook or Messenger or WhatsApp, and then we called them on the telephone. The students sometimes even downloaded the files from OneDrive and printed them at a central office in their remote community.
Okay. Now let's have a look at a map of the Northern Territory, and we put the map of Vietnam in here. So can you guess the size of the Northern Territory? It's about 4 times bigger than Vietnam, but its population is only 250,000 people. Well, that's it doesn't have a lot of people in here in the Northern Territory. And the capital city of the Northern Territory is Darwin. And you know what? It takes about 4 hours to fly to Melbourne or Sydney, but it takes only 4.5 hours to fly to Ho Chi Minh City. That's why in the past, I used to fly back and forth like a few times a year. Just over the last few years, Jetstar didn't provide direct flights to Ho Chi Minh City anymore. Well, it's a mishap. Now, can you see the 2 red dots on the map? They are the two islands, Aru and Maluku Islands. These islands are located in southwest Maluku, north of Australia and Ambon. Now, I'd like to give a bit information about Unpati, the University of Patimura. Unpati has a long relationship with CityU, but just before COVID-19 pandemic, Unpati approached the university for a face-to-face workshop about teaching and learning English as an additional language, and a Darwin tour for some of the university lecturers and students. These staff members and their students come from two of Unpati's remote campuses in the Maluku archipelago, and it's on the island of Aru and southwest Maluku. However, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, their staff and their students could not come to CityU. But you know what? Online learning throws the door open to them and to CityU as well. It makes the world smaller. It removes barriers like distance, lifestyle, age, and finance. So learners don't have to travel to Darwin. They don't have to find accommodation to study at CityU. So, CityU and Unpati agreed on an online program for Unpati's teachers of English as an additional language and their students who were learning English language to teach in schools in Indonesia in the future. It was a short course, only 10 sessions, but it included theory and practice and experience of our LMS, that's LearnLine, a virtual tour of CityU campus, and virtual tours of Darwin. Wow, it was an ambitious online program. Okay, now let's talk about our study case of Unpati. Before we designed the online program for Unpati, we had a list of things to do, and we needed to communicate with them. But communication is not easy. It is to design a successful online English language program for participants, and it is crucial, but we need to know them. We didn't get to meet the students in advance, so we were not able to get to know them or learn what the language capability levels they had, what their digital capability was like, what their learning goals and needs were individually and as a group. So we didn't know anything. We were given a list of 15 participants. And in our teaching design and strategies, we had to include everyone in our teaching. That means those participants were given, well, 5 lecturers and 10 students of those lecturers. It was not an easy program. So it's very difficult to design such an online program for both lecturers and their students. But again, we had to include everyone in this short program. So, the first challenge is communication. And the second challenge is inclusion in teaching design and strategies. The third challenge for us is accessibility to technology. We also needed to make sure our students were capable of and equipped to learn online, particularly during this extremely fast change of delivery mode because of COVID. As the participants would like to experience our LMS, we needed them to ensure that they had sufficient equipment for Blackboard LMS with Collaborate for videos that use large bandwidth and shows connectivity levels. It is vital to ask every student if they were confident and were able to convert to online learning if they have the necessary IT equipment. So what did we do? Communication channels are important. And communication is the best solution to most issues when it comes to online teaching and learning. So for the on-party students, we learned early on that they were very comfortable with the WhatsApp messaging app on both iPhones and Android, and that the Indonesian connectivity range supports this lightweight program very well. So WhatsApp is excellent and is popular, is found everywhere in Indonesia. So Liz and I made use of this communication tool as early as we could so that we could start building relationships with the students. We introduced ourselves via the app and encouraged the students to do the same back. And we could meet and they could meet each other as well. We chatted individually and in small groups. It was also vital. We had group leaders for each location. And so we could quickly get answers when we needed them or when information is given out to them. They got information and they spread the information very quickly. So that's a bonus for us. Okay, now, so how could we sort out the accessibility to technology? We gave them a digital skills for online learning checklist, and we used that checklist to record each student's response, and based on the students' responses to the questions, then we tailor our approach accordingly. And we offer the learning that suited them best. So yeah, it's a checklist.
So this is the checklist that we used to find out what computer equipment and expertise the students had before they started the online program. We also used this checklist for the students in Australia who had to rush to online learning because of the pandemic. It's not enough to support VET students' digital skills for learning. We have to ensure our students are capable of and equipped to learn online, particularly during the extremely fast change of delivery mode because of COVID. It's vital to ask every student if they are confident and are able to convert to online learning and if they have the necessary equipment. CDU uses this checklist to record each student's response, and like Hugh said, we tailor our approach accordingly. Much like the rest of Australia, we continued mainly with the teaching and assessment online of theory knowledge and postponed the practical tasks until the students could return to campus. The legacy of all this work has been a much stronger online learning presence for CDU VET and an appetite for more sophisticated educational technology. To give you a little bit more detail, these are the questions on the form. Based on their answers, we know whether they're ready to study online or not. So it's very important that they answer the questions so that we can gauge what they would need as support. We ask them very practical questions about whether they have the system requirements to run the learning management system that we use here at CDU. We mentioned LearnLine, which we'll show you soon. So we ask them if they have a recent operating system, whether they have enough RAM to run the program, Collaborate, the video conferencing part of our LMS, is quite high bandwidth use. So they need to have quite a bit of space to run that capacity. And we make sure that they've also got some spare storage on their computer. We also try to make sure that they have sufficient screen resolution to be able to see us and their learning clearly. It's also important that they can engage back with us via a web camera and have a microphone and the internet bandwidth to be able to speak. We also ask them how confident they are using Microsoft Office suite programs like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, because they are the most common tools that we might use for their learning. If they answer no to having access to a computer at home, then we ask them a different set of questions to be able to adjust to their circumstances. We ask them if they have a dedicated space to study at home, if they have access to a telephone, if they're able to use email and text messaging on that phone, and if they have a residential address where printed resources could perhaps be posted. This is the typical suite of software a TVET student may engage with during their learning with us. In addition, they may use their smart devices as much as they are able, if they have them, but both phones and tablets in Android and Apple versions. Hugh and I have both mentioned our learning management system. This is our flagship program that we use to present the majority of our online learning. It's a Blackboard product, and we have made our own version of it that we call LearnLine. Learning management systems are typically abbreviated to LMS. We also have a Microsoft Office suite program called Teams that we also deployed, particularly for students who didn't have enough internet to run Blackboard and collaborate. So Teams is very lightweight in comparison. We also used web-based classrooms. Hugh mentioned Collaborate, and we've used Zoom like we are today quite often. In addition, any email, any browser is often the case, but we also use Outlook for the majority here at CDU. The students needed to make sure they had their most up-to-date internet browser, and sometimes our LMS works better in Firefox, and we recommend that to our students. As we've mentioned, we use social media to our advantage, WhatsApp, Messenger, or text messaging and iMessage. And of course, our engagement tools that you'll all get to practice today: Kahoot, Mentimeter, Padlet, or even Wakelet, and perhaps polls and surveys and quizzes that come with those programs like Zoom and Teams built in. All right. So now you're going to get the opportunity to try another piece of engagement software that we quite enjoy using. Mentimeter is a terrific app that you're able to access on any device. Again, it's free to use. I'm going to put the instructions in the chat for you. Excuse me. And you'll be able to have a go at describing online learning in 3 different words.
Yeah. We are not advertising such a platform. It's just we found out that those platforms are very valuable for teachers. They are very useful for teachers to use to engage students.
And let me just put Mentimeter on the screen for you. Now, Mentimeter is a tool that interacts with the lecturer and the students. So I am going to share a presentation on the screen for you, and then you'll be able to see it. And there's a QR code that you can put your phone camera up against, if you like. And that will take you to the Mentimeter site so that you can work on the 3 words that we're looking for. Hugh and I have chosen the word cloud arrangement as the way our results are displayed, but there are quite a few different ways that you can choose to present your screen. So if you're on your mobile device, you can minimize zoom and use the camera on your phone and hover over the top of the QR code without taking a photograph, and a URL will pop up that you can click on. And that will then take you to a place where you can note and submit 3 words to describe online learning.
Sorry to interrupt a little bit. 3 adjectives. It's better.
English language teacher. Yeah.
3 adjectives. Because 1 word, Vietnamese word, is not enough to describe. And usually, like there are 2 words at a time in a row.
If you are not able to use the QR code, you can go to menti.com and type in the code, and it will take you to the same place as the QR code. And you will see 3 boxes where you can type in 3 words.
They are all in Vietnamese, so don't worry. Just
that's
type
okay.
in Vietnamese.
Yes. When you submit, the 3 boxes will come back up because you can submit as many words as you like. We are hoping for 3 from everybody, but we'll take as many as you can think of, so don't be shy. I'm just going to change the screen to see how we're going with our results. Wow.
Oh, all in English.
Excellent.
Wow. Some Vietnamese, but good.
Yeah. So this word cloud is the way that we've chosen for your entries to be displayed collectively. So they're anonymous, and each time a word is covered twice or more times, it gets bigger on the screen. So this is a word cloud, and it will keep updating every time somebody puts a new word in. What we might do is check back later and see if there's some more words. It's great to see every time somebody enters a new piece of information, the word cloud refreshes itself in real time. Some of the other ways that Mentimeter can display information from the participants is a rolling screen of responses, which also moves and updates in real time.
Yeah, that's good. Wow, that's excellent.
You guys are terrific. So we can see flexible, practical, and what's the word in red?
Can't see it clearly.
No, it's a long way away, isn't it? Time saving, dynamic, useful. I agree. And
easy,
accessible. Yes.
Difficult to practice. Flexible is good.
Yeah.
Students, what students?
Interesting.
Is it challenging or something like that?
Yeah. Save time.
Yeah.
Once you get it set up, sometimes it can save time.
Yeah.
Tiring. Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
It can be tiring.
Yeah.
It's very challenging and very satisfying. It's very new to a lot of us.
So it's a mix of challenging and satisfying. It's a mix of negative and positive.
I think
so that's good.
I'm just going to minimize that, but it'll keep going in the background. So feel free to keep entering results, and we'll try and remember to check back later. Professor Gilly Salmon has developed a 5-stage model as a framework to build participants' digital capabilities. Each stage requires students to master certain technical skills. Each stage calls for different e-moderating skills from us. For online learning to be successful and happy participants, they need to be supported through a structured development process. This 5-stage model provides a framework to scaffold or structure the paced program for online learning. The 5-stage model also offers essential support and development to learners at each stage. through a combination of online teaching and technical support as they build up their expertise in learning online. The program that we delivered to the Unpati students was built on these 5 principles in the application of a social constructivist theory of learning. We use this model to support and measure our Unpati students' digital capabilities by using the principles in the design of the LearnLine site, which we will show you very soon. For level 1, which we did in Zoom before moving the students into LearnLine, is important to set up good access and motivation. We welcome the students and teach them how to log in and to have them practice accessing LearnLine multiple times. I was the e-moderator and welcomed the students and gave them support and motivated them to engage. Hugh and I had them learn how to take part by introducing themselves into a discussion board in LearnLine and taught them how to log in and encouraged them to come back often. They learned how to upload images from their communities and get to know one another. They also got familiar with the technical support available, which is a 24/7 LearnLine help desk here at CDU. For level 2, online socialisation is very important. We built a micro community for the duration of the program with the students. We made sure they were comfortable. We uploaded brief videos, created small groups for discussions. So for Unpati, we created groups for each location and groups for the teachers and groups for the students only. We talked about why they are learning online and we gave them a taste of what was coming up next. We made sure they knew how to navigate around the site, how to respond to others. And even though they didn't need to know every single part at that point, they needed to know how to take part and how to contribute. As e-moderators, we hosted the introductions to make everybody feel comfortable and help the students to get to know one another. They need to know they can start forming teams and get familiar with why they're working online and get awareness of what's coming up. Once the community is established, over the first few lessons, we moved on to level 3, which is the information exchange section. This is the core learning for each student at their individual level. We had students collaborating on written work to build their English language knowledge, and they were able to reduce the amount of technical support that they needed from me. We had the students come together to share information in English that they had learned about their lives, and we gave them online activities that they could take part in, such as listening to audio and reading and answering questions in English. We were able to give even less technical support, and it was our job just then to make sure everything worked properly in the LearnLine site and be around to help. Level 4 is where knowledge construction happens for new knowledge. We switched from more individual learning to more group activities. Hugh and I created breakout rooms for the students to go to and practice speaking and listening in English, and then answering set questions that they had to report back to the main group. Breakout rooms is a component of most video conferencing these days. Zoom, Teams, and Collaborate all have places where you can go as a small group and to talk to one another. We offered them feedback on their learning and continued the technical support to make sure everybody took part and had a job to do. For the Last level, level 5, it's called development. The students reflect on how far they have come. They revised some of their learning, and level 5 is sometimes where formal assessment also happens.
Okay, now let's get back to our case study, Unpati. So we initially mentioned that we gave Unpati students a digital skills for online learning checklist. The outcome of the checklist was various. Some had laptops or desktops with unlimited internet access, so that's great. But some others only had mobile phones to use for learning. Others had mobile phones with limited data. It was good to know that they all had email accounts and WhatsApp on the phone. Now, ideally, we prefer our students to have their own device. We call bring your own device. But in this case, some Unpati students had to use their phones for their first couple of lessons. It was not convenient for them as the screens were too small to see all activities. Some students decided to borrow laptops that they were not familiar with. So we decided that, well, they better go to the computer labs on their campuses, and they did. It was a very good solution because they could get together with other students in the computer lab, although sometimes it was difficult to hear because multiple microphones were on together in the same room. Sometimes it created a feedback squeal. It's a long, high-pitched noise. It's a bit uneasy at that time. But anyway, it was better than having to use mobile phones to learn. Now, for logging in to CDU system, it's not easy. It's very difficult for students whose English as a native language, let alone those students whose English language levels are not high. And it was not easy for us to help them remotely as well. So creating a digital identity with CDU is also a complex exercise. While we did try to simplify it as much as possible, especially for this class, Unpati class here, it was still a difficult and tiring task for all of us, for both teachers and students. It was even more difficult for those whose English language levels not good enough to listen and to listen to the instructions all in English. I remember Lisa spent days and nights, Lisa made herself available 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to help the students. So that's great. Now, despite clear instructions and pre-checking that our internal technical solutions would work, there were still a lot of issues. And there were stopping and starting and frustrations on all sides. It was very time-consuming to coordinate such an online program. And it took all of our collective patience and perseverance to succeed. But we succeeded. It was good. Of course, when it comes to initially logging in, just remember that we need to make sure there's lots of extra time to troubleshoot with the students one by one, no matter how easy it is supposed to be. There will always be problems. Now, so how can we sort out the issue here? It's good that we had just-in-time support, and the person in charge of just-in-time support is this lady, Lisa. Every time a question popped up, we answered it straight away, so the students could keep moving and stay motivated. So sometimes it was quite repetitious, because every student often has the same issue. So once we noticed a common problem, we share the solution with everyone. Now, for myself, as a subject matter expert and a main lecturer of the program, the Party program, it was vital that I had a second person, this lady here, to support me while I was teaching. Because although I'm a confident user of the learning management system, the LearnLine, video-based classes and engaging tools, it was crucial that I have her to provide technical backup. She can help me troubleshoot individual students' issues mid-class, so the flow of the class wasn't broken up. Also, Lisa acted as a timekeeper, a note taker, a reminder, and a manager of the digital breakout rooms as well. And she's sometimes the leader of the class. Now, regarding netiquette, in the the orientation session, that's the first session, we explain lecture formats. We also explain the learning outcomes, participation, communications, assessment, delivery plan, homework expectations, and of course, online learning etiquette or netiquette. But it doesn't mean that we prepare a lot of things. So we expected that there would be challenges, and we try to figure out the challenges. But there were some of the situations that we didn't really expect, so we didn't prepare for that. So, for example, when we plan and decide that, we didn't include weather conditions in our plan. So apparently, interruptions to the training by the weather were a significant factor. So the whole program was a 10-session program. Of the 10 sessions, very few were uninterrupted. The students were spread out across Southwest Indonesia. Some were in city Ambon, some were in Southwest Maluku, and some on an island called Moa. And that means that each smaller group within the class experienced different weather conditions, and that spread the interruptions around. So there was no way of getting any consistency. The storms common to tropical Indonesia are so significant that they caused flooding, electrical breakouts, poor or severe internet connectivity, all problems, a lot of issues. Now, these interruptions or delays to online classes, and so causes problems. And so we decided to have like chunk of time, teaching time here. And sometimes, we get ready to prepare for the problems at that time. So chunk of time provided just in case some students had to do something, and in some cases the students had to sort out the blackouts in the area by using a backup generator. Yeah, that's one time, right? But well, it seems to be sorted. However, the generator was so loud, we had to get over it. Other times, it simply meant we had to repeat the class at a later time to make up for the time lost. Now, also for unexpected circumstances or being a teacher, we need to be flexible. And flexibility was very important in this case for both teachers and students. So when the weather interrupted and shortened the class one day, for example, it simply meant longer class the next to catch up here. We also gave students work to do offline, and we followed it up if the content was getting behind. It was important to have a contingency for when this happened. For example, we had the learning management system where the students you could still go offline to keep working. Now, talking about netiquette, I think Lisa will tell us a story.
We did have a very special student join our UNPADI program. He wasn't on the original student list, but he ended up being in every class for the whole 10 sessions. One of our students in the Southwest Maluku group of students was coming to us online from his home, and he had quite a few animals at his home, and one of them was a very loud rooster, and that rooster crowed through all of our classes every day. So he would be quiet for a small amount of time, and then he would crow like any rooster would, and he was loud enough to be audible over the microphone that this student was using. So every now and then we would have to pause the class and have a listen to the rooster, and then when he was quiet, we would go back to our normal lessons. It's probably a good example of some of the things that can happen that are surprising when you teach online. And you can't really change that. All you can do is work around it and help with the people that you've got online. It was all very challenging. We had lots of contingencies ready, and they were mostly based around what we thought we were going to find when we met our students. It was a very difficult position to work from, and not one I recommend. It does pay to know your students well before you try and design an online program just for them.
All right. Let's talk about online pedagogy for UNPADI. So for the UNPADI program, as well as other programs that I've been teaching, I focus a lot on learner-centered approach. So what is it? We'll talk about that shortly. So this approach ensures that learners achieve skills and maximize their prospects for employment and or further study outcomes. Learner-centered approach develops learners' personal and employment capabilities. It targets learners' individual needs. So we need to know what the learners already know and have, what they want to learn and what they want to achieve. And so training should be learner-centered, and it should encourage participant achievement, and it should enable active engagement with the learning process, and it should be tailored and it should be flexible to the needs of the participants or group of participants. So through our communication with the students, the UNPADI students as a group, or teacher group, student group, or individuals, all on WhatsApp, we all get some general information about participants only. That's not enough for us to design a teaching program. So we decided to provide them a diagnostic assessment. That's in our first session on Zoom. So part of the first session is orientation, and the next part was diagnostic assessment. The assessment tasks were developed based on learners' learning needs and goals, and the tasks focused on their speaking, reading, and writing skills. In the interview, the participants were encouraged to discuss their goals and development plans, which included further studies and their future career. It was to find out what learners already know and have. Also, because it's online learning, we also focus on, and we wanted to know that digital accessibility, apart from their English language levels, their learning needs, and other factors that may affect their learning. So assessment tasks here. What did we do with assessment tasks? The outcome of assessment tasks were very important. They informed the content that would be built to deal with each other's specific contexts in mind. So we recorded all the outcome of assessment tasks. And our teaching learning design involved collaboration and recognizing the participants' own experience and self-identified needs so that the content was meaningful and it should be connected to individual context. What about learning activities? So we developed learning activities to equip the participants to put the skills and knowledge they have learned to effective use in their prospective teaching and or teaching role, and future teacher roles as well, because they are teachers and they're students who are learning to become teachers. Now, the participants were encouraged to bring to class the resources they use in the university as well. And because we use that as part of their skills development. Now, the teaching was only 3 hours per session, only 3 hours. If it was face-to-face, it should be okay. But 3 hours online was not easy. It was long. So we decided to divide each session into small chunked active learning sessions with a few minutes break in between. And in each chunk session, learners learn theory and then they apply theory into practice. And they did practice in small groups in breakout rooms, initially on Zoom, and later we moved them to Blackboard Collaborate, means Learn Live. We gave them clear explanations while teaching, and we also monitor breakout rooms, like Lisa and I monitor the breakout rooms to make sure that learners were engaged in activities. And while teaching, we also prepare for digital interruptions because of internet disconnections or instability from the learner's end. We also asked them to spend about an hour for homework for each of 3-hour session. And they were given flexible ways to submit their homework. We use email, we accept email, we accept WhatsApp. Sometimes students found that it would be easier for them to use WhatsApp. Some other students prefer to use Google Docs. And of all tools, I really like the students to use Google Docs. It was because I would check and correct their online work simultaneously to engage their reflective learning. We also gave them icebreaker activities, especially at the beginning of the sessions. And we gave them speaking, listening activities online. While learning, sometimes we provide some polls and surveys, especially at the beginning of each session. Polls at the beginning of each session to ask them about homework. For example, how they found homework. Was it easy, difficult, or average, or not easy or not difficult, for example, and we could chat from them. We also gave them some survey as well at the end of each class, just to wrap up and also to give some, to get some feedback from them. Feedback is very important for us to adjust lessons to what we might need to be covered or recovered, or and to explain and re-explain what has been already covered. While teaching, because one of the requirements of the program was digital excursions. So Lisa provided digital excursions with Q&As. And Q&As was to encourage the engagement. And we used pre-recorded videos of CDU campuses and Darwin for virtual excursions. It was good, and students kept asking questions. Our teaching approach was topic-based. And for topic-based, it seems easy, but we use bottom-up, top-down. It's sort of a little bit of terminology in English language teaching. When we were given, the students or the class were given a topic, the topic could either be in pictures or in words. They were encouraged to say what they know about the topic, some of the words related to the topic, and what they don't know and would like to know about the topic. And we developed the lessons from them. Our teaching is underpinned by teaching methodology which address and value individual needs, scaffolds learning, and respects diverse ways of knowing and learning, and ensures that all learners feel safe in a learning environment. So all of them were encouraged to talk, and we always be positive and have smiley face no matter whatever happened behind. We always keep our face smile and happy to them, and always encourage them to ask and to talk to us. And delivery approaches support learners' independence. So throughout our teaching experience, we encourage students to engage in activities, to actively involve into activities as well, and to participate into activities. And these foster the reflective learning. So the training sessions were designed in to enable small group learning, to facilitate learning through discussions and active participation. Our teaching sessions also enable teacher group learning activities, because there were 5 teachers, and teacher-student group teaching and learning activities. That means those were 10 students, teacher students. And we also provided peer learning opportunities. We encouraged feedback, and we encouraged reflection on learning. We sought feedback from participants at each training session to ascertain positive and negative elements. Any relevancy, any usefulness, any appropriateness of the level, any interest level, to identify areas of difficulties. Sometimes we use those feedback activities on Padlet, on SMS. They could SMS me, they could via WhatsApp, or they could put it on a discussion board. So we gave students opportunities for questioning and discussion. So they learn theory a little bit, but they practice a lot, and they ask questions, they collaborated with each other a lot. And all collaboration provided valuable insights into participant progress, and it reviewed any misconceptions they might have. And the feedback also informed subsequent teaching sessions and allowed us to adapt and to change and to ensure that teaching was meeting the learning needs of our students. Also, like for us, we believe that teaching is like serving our students. Our job is to help them, not for them to lift you up. Right? So we focus on their learning. for understanding. And we do not focus on their accumulation of knowledge. So we don't put a lot of knowledge in there without practice, just a little bit and then practice, and then a little bit more and practice.
So I'm going to take over here for a little while, and I'm going to try and show you the LearnLine learning site that we use for our students. First, I'm just going to show you a screenshot from WhatsApp. You can use WhatsApp on your computer if you synchronize from your phone. I was hoping to be able to show you our chat. It got quite long in WhatsApp, but the conversation was in January and it's been washed out of WhatsApp and I'm not able to do that. So I took a couple of screenshots during the sessions in January and I'm presenting those to you here. WhatsApp is very flexible and allows for us to create groups of people to talk to all at the same time. And Ibu Wenzi was kind enough to facilitate our initial introduction with the students that we were going to have in Indonesia. Ibu Wenzi was a student of ours as well. So she's a teacher and she's also learning online learning from us. So you can see there, she introduced us to the group, everybody got to say hello, and we were able to say hello in return. From that moment on, the conversation kept rolling day and night. Yeah. So it's sometimes important to switch your phone off to silent when you go to sleep. Mm-hmm. But as the conversations built, we got to know one another, which I think was the most important part of our success. These are some screenshots of our students. These particular students mostly were the ones who managed to move to the computer lab on their campus. You can't see the rooster, but he is there in the background. But these are the students that we were talking to, and they had their videos turned on so we could see their faces and engage with their emotions and see how their feedback was being received. I am going to show you the LearnLine site that I was just talking about. So I'll bring that up on the screen now for you. Excuse me. There we go. So you are now looking into Blackboard Ultra, which is the version of Blackboard that we used for the site for these students. And Hugh and I built it on the principles of the Gilly Salmon's 5 levels. This particular cohort were new to using Blackboard entirely. So one of the most important things we had to do was give them access to a lot of training resources that they could watch in their own time on how to use LearnLine. So many of the topics at the beginning of this site, after the initial introductions and welcome, we had to make sure that they had lots of engaging tools and videos that they could use to practice using LearnLine. Then the sessions were for their learning. Hugh mentioned it was a 10-session program. So you'll see there are 10 sessions shown in Ultra. And each session included multimedia that the students could engage with. Sometimes we shared that multimedia via Collaborate, and other times the students could access it after hours or if the electricity or the internet went down. One of the useful parts of Blackboard Ultra is an additional part, a plugin, if you like, called Ally. And on the next slide, when I go back out of this screen, you'll see a list of support mechanisms that CDU offer for students who are learning online. Ally is a mechanism for a student to be able to download the provisions that we give them in alternative files. So This particular multimedia is a PowerPoint presentation for the orientation class for the Unpati students. But instead of downloading it or seeing it as a PowerPoint presentation, they could perhaps download it as a PDF in HTML, as an e-publishing file, with electronic braille, just audio, or as a reader that they might prefer. And this mechanism comes with the learning management system automatically. And it helps support the students to access the learning in a way that might suit them better. Each session had a series of tasks for the students to do and information that they could then absorb, download, and respond to. You can see here a link to the discussion board on the first session. I'll just click into it. And it's a discussion topic on what they thought of the first session. So there's a short question with a bit of information, and then a series of responses from the students where they have talked to us and we can talk back to them. So discussion boards are a valuable place to talk to the students each time they come to learn with us. This is an example of a digital excursion that we actually provided to the students. I'll just duck into session 2 and 3 because I think that's a better one. So this is a virtual tour of the CDU campus here in Casuarina, where Hugh and I are currently sitting. And this is a 360 video camera view that's been stitched together electronically. And we can walk around inside this view and see different aspects of the university. So Hugh and I provided this to our students in Unpati and encouraged them to click on the same link and have a look around at the facilities where we were sitting, coming to them in that online space. So you can click on the arrows and go from image to image, or you can simply click on the link and move. You can click on the screen and move it around. So I'll put this in the chat for you now so that you can have a bit of a go yourselves if you like. And if you just click and drag with the mouse, you can move the images around and have a bit of a look. So right now, coming to you from CDU, Hugh and I are sitting in that white building on the right that has the icon. That's where we're coming to you from.
And this is Lisa's building. My building is far away. It's about 7 minutes walk, fast walk from here.
A fast walk. Yeah. I mentioned Blackboard Ally, which is one of the support mechanisms that we provide for our students who are learning online. We also have a virtual open day that students can get access to anytime, and it provides some information about learning at CDU and some of the departments and facilities that are available on the different campuses that CDU has in the Northern Territory. We also have extensive online learning resources in the library, which I'll also show you. So the students are able to go online to the library systems and get assistance for their learning while they're external to CDU. So they can get language and learning support. They can create digital learning support if they need it, and they can request resources. We also have a mechanism in Australia for VET students called reasonable adjustment. Reasonable adjustment is a change in the way a student is assessed that accommodates a need of that student, but doesn't affect their competency judgment. For example, if a student has trouble reading quickly, we might give that student a longer amount of time to complete the assessment. And of course, when a student is learning and assessing, they may resubmit that assessment multiple times to show that their learning has progressed. So there's lots of different ways that we can support our students when they're learning online. And we've brought ourselves to the third way that you might also be able to engage your students to learn online in a fun and productive way. So we'd like to try a Kahoot quiz with you. It's a little bit more complicated than Mentimeter and Padlet. So we'll see how we go. Again, I'll put the instructions in the chat for you. Kahoot is a quiz-based program. Again, it's free to use as teachers, so there's no need to pay any subscription costs for the students to be able to use it and for you to be able to set it up. Now, I am going to give you a link in the chat. You will go to that link. It's www.kahoot.it. I'll put it in the chat for you so you can find it. There we go. Second. Sorry. I think I've maxed out the character limit things. Yeah. That's all right. Done. There you go, everybody. So it's quite significant. I've also posted the questions that you will see in the quiz. So let me go to Kahoot and I'll bring it over onto the screen so that you can see it. This is my Kahoot login, and I've got a quiz that I'm going to present to you called Myths of Online Learning. Now, typically, the student wouldn't see this screen. I'm showing it to you as people who would need to be able to see that as teachers and educators. So what I'm going to do now is click play so that I can get everybody to have a go, because I have to start the quiz. Now, what it's doing is loading a game pin, which is a unique pin number that everybody can use to join the same game that I'm in. So I'm going to paste that number in the chat as well. 8577722. So when you go to kahoot.it, it will ask you to enter the game pin. Thank you, Iwa, you're very quick. And then it will ask you to create a name or a nickname so that you can enter the game and see your name on the screen. If you're on a mobile device, you can hit the home button to minimize Zoom, and then you can go to your internet browser and search for kahoot.it. Unfortunately, Kahoot doesn't have a QR code, so we have to navigate specifically to the web address. To be able to build your own Kahoot quizzes, you go to kahoot.com, which is a different website for us. So I'll put that in the chat as well, kahoot.com. Kahoot.it is for playing the games, not for building the quizzes. So there is two different websites to keep in mind. There are a huge number of Kahoot quizzes that have already been written about almost every topic you could possibly think of. So it's likely that if you want to build a Kahoot quiz, somebody else has probably already done it. And you can discover those through searching on kahoot.com, make a copy of that quiz, and then amend it or change it just to suit yourself. So once we've got a few more people in the game, I'm going to click the start button so that the questions will pop up on the screen for you. I have to use the start button to control it for you. So your mobile device will show a red square and a blue square. The red square is the myth answer. I'm asking you if the question is a myth or reality. And the blue square is if you think the statement is real, if it's reality. You won't be able to see the questions on your mobile device. So I'll have put the questions in the chat just in case, but I will also read them out and they'll come to you via the translation. Do you think we should hit start? We're ready to go? Thank you all very much for joining the game. I'm going to click start now, and you're going to see the question change on the screen, and I'll read it out. And you'll have 30 seconds to decide if the statement is a myth or reality. You can choose when you design your Kahoot quizzes how long the students have to decide their answer. But the fastest you answer, the more points you get.
Yeah.
And at the end of the 3 questions in this quiz, there'll be a leaderboard to let us know who did the best. So we'll see. All right, here we go. So myths of online learning. Myth 1, taking an online class is simpler than taking a face-to-face class. Is that a myth or is it reality? 2 people have already answered. They're very quick.
Good. Yeah.
Is taking an online class simpler than taking a face-to-face class? Is that a myth or is it reality? If time is counting down, get your answers in as best you can. Here we go. So now we get to see the results. I'll click next and we see the leaderboard for the people who answered the quickest. Well done, everybody. Now we have a second question. Students and teachers can collaborate and have meaningful interactions with each other online. Is that a myth or is it reality? 20 seconds to answer.
20 seconds.
Everybody's very fast. 8 answers already. Oh, very quick. Students and teachers can collaborate and have meaningful interactions with each other online.
4 seconds.
Yes,
3,
down it goes.
2, 1.
Here we go. Oh my goodness, look at that. Excellent. Well done, everybody. So now we get to see who was the fastest. Oh, Ewa's come to the top of the leaderboard. She's very clever. Last question, everybody. Online classes require more time management and personal responsibility than normal classes do. Is it a myth or is this reality? We have lots of very fast answers.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting the hang of Kahoot.
Yeah.
Everybody's very quick learners. Yeah. Are online classes requiring more time management and personal responsibility than normal classes do? Is that a myth or is it reality? 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Oh my goodness, look at that. So I'm going to click next and we get the podium to see who came first, second and third. Koffa, well done third. Jen, well done second.
Yeah.
Who was first? We'll get a little spotlight. Oh, Ewa, well done.
Ewa.
That is excellent work. Oh, look, and we've got Linda as 5th runner-up. Well done, Linda. I hope you enjoyed Kahoot.
So I use Mentimeter. Sometimes I use Mentimeter to just encourage students to think of a topic and think of some words related to the topic. I use Kahoot for comprehension. For example, I gave the students a reading task and I asked them some questions. So instead of writing questions in the worksheet, I put all the questions on Kahoot. And they questions could be multiple choice, could be true, false as well. Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to our program here. So now, how to engage students in an online learning environment? Engaging students is vital keys, and it is very important to require students to interact and practice. It's a key factor for engaging students. So students need a lot of interaction with each other, with their teachers, and they need to practice what they have learned to understand more and to be able to apply what they have learned into practice. So there are various activities to engage them. For the Unu Party, we prepare plenty of different activities. Some were used, but some were not used. Well, but we always believe that it's better to prepare more than we use, just in case. So one of the activities was to connect learning to the real world. So initially I said we gave a topic for discussion. For example, we encourage students to think of the words and think of what, let us know what they know about the topic and what they don't know. We encourage them to use yes, no questions and WH questions as well, or open, close questions. Some students find it difficult to answer some questions. We encourage them to relate themselves to, for example, some areas or something related to them. Schools, shopping centers, community, and banks, and other things related to them that they meet or they contact or they relate themselves every day or every week, for example. Now, so when we ask them questions, when they think of answers that are relevant to them, that means we engage them with the content, right? And we make sure that the information we provide is also relevant to their life with young classrooms. Another way we did was we engaged the students' interests. We engaged our students by asking them what they are interested in doing. And we know that what already engaged our students could help us and could help them build the learning process. The weekend topic, for example, we asked students to talk about the topic and we developed the topic into different genres. For example, depending on the student's level, that we can ask them to write a recount, that means story, what they did last weekend, or a narrative, means a little bit more of a story with complication, evaluation, and resolution as well. We also use that topic to ask the students to discuss and write discussions about weekend, what people in their home country or in their area usually do and what they think about the weekend, and they can compare weekend activities in their area with other areas they know or they want to know. So we relate a lot of things that can help them improve their learning. Sometimes we gave them we asked them to give instructions about how to cook their food, the favorite food, for their friends, for example. Sometimes we asked them to send us short videos of their stories about weekend or about their daily life, for example. We believe that learning, what excites the students, is better than just having them to just say something or do something that's not related to their daily activities, that's away from their daily activities, that's not very engaging for them. And by engaging students' interests, we build strong relationship with them. While teaching, sometimes there are some internet disconnections, there are some interruptions. Thanks to Lisa, she helps me get over with that. She helped those students by giving them support with connections and with some other issues. So what I did was I filled in dead time. That means there isn't any dead time at all. Sometimes we give students some quiet time. That's thinking time. Is not just doing nothing time. Because we believe that think, pair, and share. That's think, pair, and share activity. And that activity is very good for students to reflect on a topic or something that they have just learned, or something they need to learn, and to discuss with their partners, with their other students, and share their story with the rest of the class once everyone is ready. And in our program, we had to include teachers and their students. It was not easy, but we managed to go through with that. We had activities for learners that finished early. We also help activities for those students who were a little bit behind. And for sometimes we had to spend time to help students who are behind by giving activities to other students who have done first. We work with individuals one-on-one, and we work in groups as well. Sometimes we give them some extra time to support them and also to help them learn. Our Blackboard Collaborate, or LMS, also has a great feature that allows teachers to use breakout rooms, the same as Zoom or Teams, for example. And we decided the class, and we divided the class into small groups. The students, with students chosen randomly or purposely, depending on the topic and our purposes. So we engage our students in smaller groups through breakout rooms. We took part in speaking activities with them, and we also guided them to discuss topics and other tasks as well. So breakout rooms activities are a time for them to apply what they learned from theory into practice. Also, collaboration enables participants to benefit from each other's perspective and to enhance the ability to verbalize their ideas. And this makes learning journey more productive. Now, so as we mentioned, theory is just a small thing, but practice, and then we scaffold from that. Theory, practice, and then theory, practice. We encourage students to present and share their work regularly in class as a whole, and also in smaller groups, in breakout rooms. Some students are shy, they can share their learning activities or their work via WhatsApp and or email, for example, so that we could have a look and see what we could do to provide some support as well. So we give students regular opportunities to share their thoughts, and to share their thoughts and to demonstrate their learning in WhatsApp groups, in discussion boards, and on LearnLine. Okay, now, so there are many things we did to engage the students. Games, we love games, and I'm sure the students love games as well. So some of the games we provided was like Mentimeter, Kahoot, Padlet, for example, because we didn't ask the students to sign up for Padlet. So all of the feedback or all information they wanted, if they wanted to put their name in there, they could put their name in there. But some other students who were shy, they didn't want to put the names there. That's fine. That was all good. We helped them. So what we did to measure our online learning effectiveness. So in order to measure our online learning effectiveness, we developed an individual student checklist using Excel spreadsheet. And so information in the checklist related to their learning needs, their challenges, their levels, their learning goals, their learning style and interests, all was written in the checklist at the beginning of the course. And also the assessment outcomes as well, initial assessment outcomes. While teaching, we also gave them formative assessment, and formative assessment was also recorded in there to measure the improvement. Now, we also use an observation checklist to check the students' responses on polls and surveys at the beginning and at the end of each session. We check to see how much engagement, how much of the engagement in our sessions, and we check the discussion boards to see how much contributions they have done, and to see if they had any questions as well. Now, all information was recorded, and such information was really helpful. It helped me prepare resources and plan for teaching strategies, and it make it better for me to prepare the training session plans and resources. Now, we encourage students to provide feedback, and feedback we got from the participants at each training session was a measurement tool for us to ascertain positive or negative elements, any relevancy, any usefulness, any appropriateness of level, any interest level, or to identify any errors or to identify any difficulty from the students. So Lisa and I discussed with each other after each session as well to see what worked, what didn't work. All information was recorded in the training session box in the comments, so that I will remember that. I'll make sure that the lesson plans for the next day would be built upon the feedback. And at the end of the course, we have the student satisfaction surveys as well. And that's also a tool to measure the student satisfaction to our online course. So there are some different ways to measure students' online learning. Now, looking back, was the program successful? I believe yes, it was. Everyone involved in developing, teaching, and learning in this program. So our teaching and learning in this program, well, we believe it was successful. Yeah. The learning journey, I remember it started with the first session when the students were shy and they were scared of speaking in front of the class, online class. But then they quickly progressed and became so active and dynamic in class activities. They stayed up late doing homework, and they sent homework to teachers at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they asked teachers, can you please check my homework? Yeah, and we did. So it was good, and it was good that they were able to use different tools available. They could use email, they could use Google Docs, and they could use WhatsApp to do activities. So it was awesome. The teaching methodology and strategies and resources were inclusive. We included teachers and their students on a day-to-day teaching basis to meet individual needs and to engage them to learning. We were challenged by storms and power outages and inconsistent internet connectivity and student commitments to family and the community, but the program was sustained by the students' resilience and their commitment to learn. So all 15 participants completed the program, and the students were happy and the goals were met and satisfied. So it was good. Okay, yeah, one more thing. The rooster. We still now have the remember the sound of the rooster, and sometimes we talk about the rooster.
We do.
Yeah. And we believe that it's still crowing.
Yes, it is. Hugh and I both hope sincerely that you found our presentation useful and interesting. I think we have really enjoyed preparing this presentation for all of you. We're going to take some questions now. I hope we can give you some information about what it's like to teach online that we haven't already covered. And if there's any questions that you don't get to ask or get answered, please feel free to contact us via email. We would be very happy to hear from you. Thank you very much.
Yep. We are happy to answer your questions. You can post your questions in Vietnamese as well on Padlet, or you can just post your questions in the chat. Yeah, on Zoom.
Okay, Padlet.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Hugh. There was just so much rich content in that presentation. I'll just try and pick out a few things. I think we've already asked people to put their questions in the chat box or on the Padlet. I can see on the Padlet people are sharing photos. It's great. But yeah, just some of the key messages that I picked up from your presentation and which we've, have come through in a lot of the webinar presentations that we've had. Obviously, you need to know your students well and get to know your students well. And some of the things you mentioned were, communication and inclusion, accessibility to technology, their learning goals. And the next one was prepare for everything and anything and have contingency plans, but also to be flexible when things like the rooster come along unexpected. I think another key one was always seek feedback from your students, and that's the best way to support and engage them, is to ask them and then adjust your your learning and delivery as you go along based on that feedback. So thank you for that, and it was really great as well to sort of see the technology that you're using in terms of the Mentimeter, the Kahoot, and the Padlet, and for us all to have a bit of a go to see how that would work in a classroom, and to see how by using those sort of things you really can engage your students more and use them for icebreakers and that sort of thing. So without further ado, I will pass over to Leha to see if we've actually had any questions coming through in the chat box, or, Vietnamese participants, please feel free to put up your hand, turn your camera and your microphone on and to ask questions or share your own experiences. So can I pass to you now, Leha?
Hiện nay thì tôi chưa thấy có câu hỏi nào trong hộp mà chat box cả. Và rất là kính mời các thầy cô mình nhấn nút giơ tay để giao lưu trực tiếp ạ. Bởi vì hôm nay cũng là buổi gần cuối cùng rồi ạ, còn buổi tuần sau nữa thôi. Nên là đây cũng là một cơ hội rất là quý và rất là tốt để mình có thể giao lưu với các diễn giả từ Australia. Xin mời các thầy cô ạ.
Is everyone feeling a little bit shy today? Or maybe they just covered everything in their presentation.
Even though we did technically miss a couple of the first slides, so despite all Hugh and I's exhaustive preparations for today, and even logging in early and practicing, we still forgot to share the screen for the first two slides.
That's okay. I think we have a question.
Yeah.
From Jen.
Hi, Jen.
Oh, hi everyone, and thank you, Lisa and Hugh. That was the most outstanding presentation. I think I got a bit carried away with the games. I have a question just while others are thinking about questions. I do have a question about what you would do. You mentioned that you look at how the students are engaging and what activity the different students are having. What do you do if you see either a student or groups of students that are just not engaging time after time? How do you deal with that as an issue? Because I know, speaking to some of my Vietnamese colleagues, one of the things they're concerned about is the blank screen, never seeing the person, and how do you sort of kickstart that engagement, particularly if you see a lack of engagement?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Jen. And just before that question even is, how is it possible to recognise which groups of students aren't engaging? So we didn't get to cover this, but one important aspect of a learning management system, and perhaps even things like Zoom and Teams in particular, they have analytics that they can present in a dashboard style, which shows which users have accessed which parts of the learning and how often and when and for how long. So it's quite important information about groups of learners and also their activity levels in the learning. So using a system that provides analytics is very important so that you can identify any disengaged students early, very, very early. One of the biggest risks to online learning, particularly here in the Northern Territory, where students are remote and very remote, if they don't keep up early, they often drop off their learning and they can never catch up, and they have to stop and start again the next time the learning commences, which is very disheartening for them when it has probably taken all their courage to commence in the first place. Typically, I think some of the techniques that Hugh and I have mentioned about communications and talking to them in the most convenient way is the simple formula to finding out why they have disengaged. If it's connectivity, if it's family obligations, timing, the weather, that they don't necessarily have the capability to achieve the way they thought they did, then adjustments can be made to match them with the right learning that they really need, or then instead intervene and give them additional support outside of the class.
That's right. So we focus on individual needs. So every time we identify a participant or a student who's disengaged in the lesson, we talk to that person individually in a very friendly way. When we are teachers in here, we are like their friends. So we talk to them, we encourage them to let us know what's been going on and what support we could do to help them.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
The question.
We do have another question that's come through in the chat box, and it's do you think that turning on the camera is more effective for engaging students?
Yes, definitely. In online learning program or teaching program, we can't really see the student's face and eyes. It's different from face to face. We can make immediately adjustments in a face-to-face classes. But for online, sometimes it's very difficult, especially when students or participants turn their cameras off. So sometimes we have to make a guess, and sometimes we have to provide a lot of engaging activities to make sure that they are engaged.
Okay, thank you. We've had another question as well, which is that many students suggest recording the lesson and sending it to the class so that students can review the parts they don't understand. What are your thoughts about that?
I can probably take that one too, if you like, you.
Yeah.
It's a common technique to provide a lecture and record it. We're recording this today and it'll go up on YouTube and people can watch it back. One of the benefits of YouTube in particular is you can watch the replay at any speed you like. For me personally, I don't find it enjoyable to watch lectures or discussions with other people as a recording playback. But if I want the content, I will persevere through the recording. But if I can speed it up and skip to the pieces that I really want, I'd prefer that. Some platforms offer speeding up, some don't. Instead, what I would try to do, given the opportunity, is pre-record information that is more concise in shorter videos rather than the two-way conversation that can often be quite long and difficult to listen to back. So pre-record a video that the students who don't come to the class can watch from the learning management system later on. And they still get the learning, but they don't have to watch a long conversation between a group of people, which isn't necessarily as much fun to watch.
Okay, thank you. I haven't seen any more questions in the chat box. I just wanted to throw the floor open again in case there was any participants today that would like to raise their hand and share their own experiences or ask questions directly.
No, it's just a little something. Can you see any questions on there that you're looking at? Oh, you're welcome.
My question, if I may, was about evaluation. We will be doing an evaluation at the next session, and we were considering a couple of options, and I thought I'd ask the expert for their advice about what the best platform you found be to be the most useful for evaluating or getting feedback from students at the end of the class. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you mean evaluation of the series that we're in, or evaluation? Yeah, okay. So the Mentimeter is particularly useful because you can pose a question, and if you want the evaluation to be something that's talked through in real time, you can see the responses coming through in real time, but they're anonymous. So there's a safety in that, which online learning affords. And the other option, which I've also found useful, is Microsoft Forms, only because you can ask a series of questions and the question types can be quite sophisticated, because you can have what we call radio buttons, so where you can click in a circle to choose a response. It can make completing the survey easy for the person, and you can ask questions that they can type full answers on. And then you can decide whether it's anonymous or whether you provide an optional field for them to put their name and contact details if they'd like to be contacted to follow up. So I do find online forms to be particularly useful. There are quite a few programs out in internet land that will allow for online forms, but Microsoft Forms and Google Forms are probably the two most popular, where you can tailor make the questions and decide what kind of questions that you'd like to ask. And you can ask for a series on the Likert scale, for example, where you say always, sometimes, never, things like that. Or questions out of 10, or whether you have specific answers that they can choose to ask about aspects of the program.
How about Zoom polls?
Yeah, the polls isn't bad, but you can't capture the data. It typically just evaporates once the Zoom meeting is over.
So we've got
and it's not very sophisticated.
Yeah, so we recorded the data is like immediately at that time, and then we discuss what we can do. We can make adjustments immediately at that time.
I took lots of notes when I was polling the students in LearnLine when they were studying with us. We would ask the question, sometimes it would be an icebreaker: what did you do last night? What did you have for dinner? What did you have for breakfast? Things like that. But then we would ask other questions. How are you finding the online learning? Which parts are difficult? And I would make lots of notes, and then we would circle back and fix it. But for long-term feedback of a series like this, I think to be able to capture the data and use the analytics and report mechanism that Microsoft Forms and Google Forms provides is really helpful as well. You get automated pie charts and things like that, so you can present the research.
Many thanks.
That's good questions.
Thank you. So it's nearly time to complete. I'm just going to open the floor in case there are any last questions or comments from any of our participants before we finish up today. No, well, thank you anyway, Lisa and Hugh, for your very rich and interesting presentation today. It's really very much appreciated. I'd also like to thank the TVET officers and all of the leaders and trainers from Vietnamese colleges. We thank you for your time today, and we hope that you found today's session useful. So next week is our final session of this series, which will be on the assessment of skills through online learning. So thanks again, everyone, and we hope to see you again next week for the last session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Vâng, xin chào.
Thank you.